We went on a canoe trip, a little over 21 miles round trip, mostly paddling, and some of it was pretty dang choppy and kind of scary, and some of it was just absolutely smooth as glass. There was 8 of us all together, 2 per canoe, and I was invited to go with some buddies of mine and some guys that I didn't know. We started at Lewis Lake and went to the mouth of this river and then paddled upstream against the wind along that river until we got into Shoshone Lake. And then hit a little campsite there, stayed the night, and paddled across over to North Grizzly Beach and stayed there and then paddled back. All in all, it was about 10.6 miles one way, so a little over 21 miles round trip. This video will be a bit of a travel log, but in case you're wondering where this is, it's just smack dab in the middle of Yellowstone. And so we went in the middle of Yellowstone, kind of drove up there, hit that dock, and this is what it looks like while we're loading the dock. Then this first little bit, you kind of had to time some of this right, because if you hit the water when it was too choppy, you can tip over. And this is when we kind of crossed this little section here, which wasn't too bad. If we had gone when it was a little stormier, it would have been pretty terrible. So from there, we hugged the shore a bit and then crossed over and hit the mouth of this river. This is where we kind of stopped and got some lunch. We kind of packed like backpacking, but you can carry more weight because as the boat is doing most of the work and there's not as much friction and you're not carrying it on your back. Anyway, so there's a lot of freeze-dried stuff and, you dehydrate it, boiling water, that type of thing. So we started up the river, kind of rocky and pretty shallow in parts. And at one point, you actually have to get out and just pull the boat, which we did for quite a ways. And then you get back in at the end there, and we kind of waited for some people to fish and hike and do some things along those lines. And then we kept going along the rest of this. And the whole time you're paddling upstream, so the water's going against you and the wind is going against you. And I thought, boy, this is going to be really great on the way back. Except it wasn't, because the wind shifted and the wind was against us on the way back too. So after leaving the mouth of the river, we entered Shoshone Lake and went camping right here. And so this camp spot was great. There were no bugs. Really nice area. We kind of pulled up, hike up this little bit, kind of had our cooking area where you hung our bear treats really high there so that the bears can see them from a distance and come and join us if they wanted to. And then we kind of went up a little bit further and kind of camped here. The morning of day 2, yesterday we paddled for about 4 hours and, we got to look at this. Human waste only. Anyway, so we paddled upstream against the wind for about 4 hours. It was pretty good, pretty tiring. Canoes are quite a bit different than kayaks, but yeah, it was good. So this is where we're camping, or this is where we camped the first night. So there's where most people stayed. And then a couple of us stayed here in the hammocks. In the trees. I prefer the hammock. So then we took down the bear treats. I think one of the most entertaining things is watching everybody hang the food. Just get a bunch of outdoorsy guys getting together and trying to discuss the best way to do it. Anyway, this was a little bit of a trickier spot, or could have been, because if you cross this when it's windy, you could have 2-foot white capping waves, and if you get dumped, you're in some serious trouble. As you can see, we were fine, and it was glass. It was not glass on the way back, but just beautiful little section there. And this is where the bald eagles lived, and also where we pooped. So kind of shared our campsite here with the eagles, and they did some fishing with some falcons and things that we saw. And we just basically spent a few days kind of trolling around here. I hung out and drew some pictures and read some books and just kind of napped and Just kind of really enjoyed not being connected to screens or electronics. Most of this beach was just broken shards of obsidian, and so it was literally like walking on broken glass. And my buddy Ben got a little shard of obsidian in his foot. Kind of dehydrated food, boiled things, hung out, talked, watched the clouds. So the 120 rule is if the air temperature plus the water temperature is below 120 degrees, then you have a chance of getting hypothermia. If we tipped in this water, we figured that we'd have a little less than an hour to get to shore before we died of hypothermia. So the goal was not to tip. And this is what you would walk by if you needed to do your business. And this is all of the modern amenities of life. So the eagle's nest was just a little bit up and to the left there. Last day. It was fun. I slept in the hammock, kind of excited to take a shower. So then we packed up and headed back the way that we came. The wind shifted, as I said, and was kind of against us again. You might be noticing that Matt and I are using kayak paddles and not canoe paddles, and that's because the canoe that we were in didn't have much of a keel, so it kind of kept turning sideways. And so we figured using the kayak paddles would be easier than the canoe paddles because it just didn't track very well. The water was way choppier this time, so it was a little bit hairy at the end, but we didn't tip. We made it. We didn't really see any big game, which is okay because most of the big stuff out there is pretty dangerous with the bears and the moose and the elk and things. And we got all of our injuries out of the way before we left. Tom kind of janked up his knee playing soccer. Steve cut his foot open diving with some coral. I dislocated both of my thumbs skateboarding. So yeah, the trip itself was rather uneventful, which is good. Nobody dumped. Everything was safe, and all in all, great trip. Nice little 20-mile, 3 or 4 day little thing. So, highly recommended. Like getting out on the water. We'll see you guys next time with smart stuff.